All right, I mentioned that I would spend a little more time talking about a trusted CA hierarchy, and if your organization requires a trusted CA hierarchy, you need to understand what it is and what it's there to do. As I mentioned in the previous module, it exists just as a way to link multiple CA hierarchies. And when you're implementing a trusted CA hierarchy, you need to take several design considerations in mind. And there are a couple of guidelines here I want to touch on here that are recommended by Microsoft. And these include asking yourself the question, does the trust relationship need to be defined in the first place? There are several good reasons why this might be necessary. One is just mergers and acquisitions, and the others is to separate two different certification solutions, one to issue certificates to public users and then others to maybe an extranet for users within a company. Might be one reason that you would have to create or would want to create a trusted CA hierarchy. Keep in mind, however, that when you create a trusted CA hierarchy, you're going to put a bit of a strain on network traffic. And this is because the process by which certificates are traced back to the roots is part of the validation process. And so the longer and the deeper your certification hierarchies go, the more it will have an impact on network traffic. Other guidelines here as you create trusted CA hierarchies is that you need to make sure that you have a mutual agreement on the nature of the trust, and you also need to ensure that good security practices are in place on both sides of the trust. Now, a lot of times you are responsible for the security practices on both sides of the trust, but again, in the case of mergers and acquisitions and things like that, that may not necessarily be the case. You then create an issuance policy for each hierarchy, and these issuance policies will identify the extent of the trust that exists between two CA hierarchies. Now, when you implement this, you will usually do something. You usually generate the trust relationship between the two CA hierarchies, which I have two here. And when you do this, the hierarchies will be known as cross-certified. And the cross-certified process involves sometimes setting constraints, and these are known as qualified subordination. So this can be used to create trust relationships by the issuance of certificates either between two roots in a CA hierarchy, and this would allow a trust relationship to exist then between all CAs in both hierarchies here in this example, or you can limit the trust to just specific CAs throughout each hierarchy. And again, you can build these relationships however you would like. To complete this process of creating a qualified subordination, or in other words, a trust between the two certification authorities, hierarchies, you generate or create a policy.inf file. You configure it on the CA that will be the issuer of the cross-certification certificate. So if we go back to our diagram here, in the case of where you're just the two roots CAs are trusting one another, you are going to create this or configure this policy.inf file at both this server and this server, both CAs, because they will both be issuing what's known as a cross-certification certificate, and this is how you implement a trusted CA hierarchy.